I am Daniel Lucas, and welcome to Book 101 Review. Book 101 is all about the books that I read for the last 40 years. And today I have my special guest, very special guest. She is award winning and best selling author at the age of 17, no other than Ms.Shanti Hershenson.
Thank you so much for having me.
Welcome to Book 101, Miss Shanti, and can you please introduce more about yourself?
Of course. So, my name is Shanti Hershenson. I'm 17 years old, and I've had a really amazing and really rewarding writing journey over the last few years. Since I was really young, I loved writing. It was, my favorite thing. I loved like creating these stories and these characters. And when I was 12 years old, I decided that I really wanted to write a book. And at the time, I was stuck at home because of lockdown. So I just went for it. And I've never looked back. I've never stopped. And it's just really been like the coolest thing.
The coolest thing, because you are cool. Let's celebrate your coolness. Thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world.
Of course, thank you.
You're welcome. And this podcast is created for you. So let's talk about one of your sci-fi novel, Neverdying. Can you tell us about it?
Of course. Neverdying is, I believe it's my most sold book right now. And it was, honestly, it was a pretty, big change for me. So I wrote it when I was 14 years old. I was in 8th grade. And at the time, I felt a little not that I was stuck necessarily, but just that I wanted to, do something different. Like, something wasn't working. So I really tried to, write the book that I really wanted to read, but I also really experimented a lot with my writing style. And I tried to forget the fact that I was 14 and just write whatever came to mind. And this is the book that I came up with. And instantly, on TikTok, I had videos go viral and people were really, really interested. And this was for the first time that I was like, oh my gosh, this is actually success, and it's immediate success. And I got interviewed on the local news. And I love this book so much. It's about a future in which a random handful of society are immortal due to this genetic mutation. And the government does not like this. So they decide that they're going to have these government operatives called exterminators basically go and kill the immortals. And it becomes this sort of, conflict that's both social, political, and just very... It's a lot. It's really intense, and it's a really fun book as well.
Oh my gosh, Shanti, we salute you of what you're doing. So how does the novel explore the concept of immortality?
So the novel explores it from two different sides. It explores it in the way that the people who aren't immortal are very much jealous. They're like, well, I want to live forever. On the other hand, it explores the kind of sort of little crises that people who are immortal are going through in terms of having literally an infinite amount of time. And as well as the fact that even though these people are immortal, they're still being hunted and they're still having these very serious. So it's it explores it from two different fronts. It's really interesting because the people, most of the people that are immortal in the book wish they weren't immortal, and the people who aren't immortal wish they were. So it really poses this sort of question about the grass being greener. Yeah.
So what are the main themes presented in Neverdying?
Ooh, so I have a lot about just society and about sort of the way that other people are treated, and the way but also in the way that people can rise to power, in the way they can use their power as influence, and also the way fear is used as influence over people. There's a lot of, among the people who are against the immortals, there's a lot of fear. They're like, this is unnatural, we don't like this, we're afraid of this. And then on the other hand, the immortals, despite being physically very powerful, are this oppressed group of people. It also, of course, there's a lot of themes about love and romance, and about finding goodness even in a really dark time. And ultimately, it's also it's just a very enjoyable book. Like I reread it sometimes and I'm like, "Oh, this is kind of funny." Like there are some good moments of like humor in it. There's some really intense moments, there's some sad moments, but it's also like it has that sort of like young adult sort of almost, I don't want to say fun because obviously like the plot of the book's not fun, but it has that sort of like fun feel to it as well.
Definitely. People, Ms.Shanti Hershenson will be my feature author of the month of June. So please tune in for that. So how does Neverdying offer or differ from other books about immortality?
Ooh, so I think it offers both perspectives. It also it poses a sort of you know a different perspective where a lot of books featuring characters who are mortal or are about immortality have these characters who are really like both physically strong and emotionally strong and powerful and like ethereal, and the immortals in this book are actually just normal people who happen to have this genetic mutation. And well, in a lot of literature, immortals are these like very like kind of they're at the top of the food chain. The immortals in this book are forced to the bottom.
Interesting. What moral or ethical dilemmas do the characters face regarding never dying?
Ooh, so one thing I can think of is there's a character, he's the one on the cover, Kane Hawkins, and
Mm.
he starts his out, he's an exterminator, and he believes that he's like, okay, this is right, I'm saving the world by killing immortals. And he doesn't think much of it. He's like, this is what he's meant for. And then he finds out that he himself is an immortal. So there's a bit of this like question of, he's like, wait, he's been taught his whole life that this is what's right, and then he finds out that he is the very thing that he's sworn to destroy. And also at the same time, the whole construct of like the idea of like getting rid of immortals and exterminating them, you know there's like the villains, they have their like quote unquote like justification. They're like, well, we're doing this because of this, we want to prevent overpopulation, but like at the extent of like killing people. Like it's really there's a lot of intricate conversations between the like morals of these characters and then their behaviors.
So do you think Never Dying will become a series or a motion picture?
Ooh, I would love to see Neverdying as a TV show or a movie. That's like the dream. Technically, I feel it could be either. There's 4 books in the series. The series is done, except for the fact that I might write like a little bonus novella. Um, but within there being 4 books in the series, it could be that it's a TV show and there could be just 4 seasons, or it could be like a movie series with 4 movies. I honestly think it would be better as a TV show almost, just
Yeah.
because there's so much just within the books, and I'm like, well, that's an episode on its own. That's not that's like literally a movie length on its own. And then that might allow for there to be more exploration of the world and the characters, and like, yeah.
So Never Dying will be a series, quartet, or a trilogy.
Ooh, so right now it is a quartet. And I'm not estimating that it's going to change because I don't think there's room for an actual like 5th book. But there's definitely room for bonus content.
For sure. Prequel.
Ooh, that's a good idea.
who who are the main protagonists in Never Dying?
So the 2 main characters are Scarlett Caldwell and Kane Hawkins. I know I mentioned Kane earlier. He is the exterminator turned immortal. And then there's Scarlett. And Scarlett found out that she was immortal when she was 12 years old and she got hit by a car in front of a lot of people and nothing happened. And that was at the start of this sort of like, the beginning of the idea of immortals in this society. And so she has lived several years in hiding. She's 19 when the book starts, and she's basically like, part of her is tired of living. She lives in a compound, and she really cannot go outside much. A part of her is really tired of living in fear, and another part of her doesn't think that anything could be done.
Hmm.
And but then as she's sent on a mission, and it's this whole like elaborate plot, but she's sent on this mission that has her questioning like whether or not being quiet about it is the right thing to do.
So what are the motivations of the main characters?
Of course. So Kane originally is motivated by the fact that, like, in some ways he's very lost with himself.
Yes.
He needs something, he needs a purpose, and he believes that his purpose is to exterminate. That's what he's been taught. On the other hand, Scarlett is just motivated to stay alive, to see the end of this conflict. And of course, as the story progresses, their motivations change and they learn more about themselves. But I can't spoil the book, so.
Spoilers. So, how do the characters' relationships evolve throughout the story?
So, of course, originally, Kane and Scarlett hate each other. They meet, it's obviously like mortal
Mm-hmm.
enemies.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and as they are allegedly, maybe not, forced to work together, they soon realize that they actually have a lot in common, and there's this sort of middle ground. And especially this is important for Kane, as he realizes that so much of what he's been taught is a lie, and from there he can kind of start to learn more about himself through connecting with others who he previously did not like.
Interesting twist. So, who is or who as the antagonist, and what role do they play in the story?
Of course. So the primary antagonist of Neverdying is this character named President Wilde. For a lot of the book, he's sort of this like figurehead. Like, it's the people that are working for him or the characters who are actively like interacting with the main characters. However, as the series progresses, there are more interactions with President Wilde, and it sort of becomes, like, he is like the main traditional villain.
Interesting. So, at the age of 17, you are award-winning and best-selling author. What would be your goal in life?
So I really just want to keep writing. I want to keep like inspiring people and getting to do what I love, and also like help other people through my work. I love writing things that people can relate to, even if like the plots are crazy and there's a lot going on. There's always little pieces of each story and the things the characters are experiencing that I feel others can relate to. And it's also, for me, like, my writing's a bit of a form of social commentary. So
Mhm.
it's all about really, exploring the world through like the written word. I'd love to see a film adaptation of one of my books, whether it's a TV show or a movie. Of course, that's every writer's dream. I also think a video game would be very cool.
Yes, certainly. So, what would be your advice for those people out there who want to write their stories, novels, or memoir?
Of course, my biggest piece of advice, I say it all the time, I should get a t-shirt that just says it at this point, is write every day. And more specifically, if you can, write the same amount every day. That's what allows your brain to really just get into the habit of creating and writing, and soon enough, it just becomes like, that just, it's like just a part of your daily routine. Like, for me, it's like, yep, you know, I eat 3 times a day and I write
Hmm.
1,000 words every single day. And it's just like, I can't like not do it anymore. And it's also just like, I love it so much. And it's like, if you can like come up with a story or just start writing something that you love so much that you can't put down, that's how you know it's going to be a good book.
Definitely. So, who inspired you to write?
Ooh, I have so many inspirations. I think just early on, it was the like children's books I read when I was really, really, really young. And the first time I really experienced that like magic of like,
Hmm.
I love this book. I could read it 100 times and never get bored. And then once you have, like, I feel like anyone that has that connection with a book is gonna at least think about wanting to write their own, because like you want to replicate that magic.
Definitely. Do you think you'll be the next Elon Musk?
Ooh, I don't know.
We will judge, okay? We're gonna look what will be happening to you after 20 years. So, where does the story take place, and how does the setting affect the narrative of Never Dying?
Of course. So Neverdying takes place in Southern California. There are two major cities that are important in Neverdying. It's Los Angeles and San Diego. Um, to be honest, that's the only two places I've ever lived, and I have plenty of books that take place in other places. Just for this one, I was like, I think this should take place in California. I think, I don't know. There's something about like a post-apocalyptic version of where I grew up that I'm
Yes,
like, I really like that, and I think that would be something very interesting to explore. Because then it's like I can put a little piece of myself into it. Definitely like the big city setting of it, really like adds to the equation.
Truly. So, what unique elements of world building does Anthony Ryan incorporate?
Ooh, so I do. I'd say world building is definitely in some ways a struggle for me because it's very challenging. But I try to come up with like I just try to sit down and as I'm writing, I kind of take a pause and I'm like, okay, so I have this setting. So there's like maybe a door over there. Okay, what happens if the characters walk through it? Like where like even if it's not going to be on the page, what is in this world? What is in the atmosphere? And once I find that I can clearly like envision the world and explore it almost like it's a real place, then that's when I'm like, just in my head, even if it doesn't end up in the story, like that's how I can really world build.
Hmm. Yes, indeed. So, how does the society in Neverdying function with the presence of immortality?
So I'd say the society is very torn up. There are definitely a lot of issues. There's sort of an imbalance in power. It's really, it shows like how easily humanity can fall apart. Um, and it's like, in place of traditional law enforcement, there's exterminators. Certainly, because that's what like the government is focused on, whether or not it's an important thing to focus on.
What kind of technology or supernatural elements exist in this world?
Ooh, so there are a lot of robots and never dying. A lot of things are automated. We have flying cars. Because even though this is a very broken society, they have it's sort of this like almost because it's not like the kind of futuristic where it's like really like clean and like it's kind of this like sort of like grungy like run down version of like the future, but we still have those elements of like robots and flying cars,
Yes,
and yeah.
for sure. So, how does the passage of time impact the world of Neverdying?
Ooh, so Neverdying takes place. I believe it's about 20 something years in the future from now. So
Mm,
there's not like a huge amount of time for all of these like crazy, technological advancements. Yet at the same time, we still have, certain things. Like for example, that we no longer like they've gotten rid of airplanes because instead they just have their own personal flying cars that you can take anywhere. Kind of as I said earlier, again, like a lot of the jobs that humans previously worked are worked by robots. So in some ways, it's also like a commentary of how in some ways it seems like society is going, or how people things people are worried about in the future.
so, what is the narrative structure of Neverdying, and is it a linear or non-linear?
Ooh, good question. Neverdying, unlike some of my other novels, Neverdying is very much linear. It's this continuous story. I have two different point of views. I do Kane and Scarlett, and the chapters are just alternate one after another. It doesn't have many flashback scenes. There are a few in the book, but they're usually incorporated as the characters like dreaming.
Interesting. So, how does the pacing of the book affect the readability?
Ooh, I say that Neverdying is one of my easiest books to read because it's very fast paced. There is something happens in every chapter. You're constantly on your feet. It's very exciting, and it's like pretty much from like the first chapter you are thrown into the story. There's not a lot of exposition. Rather, the exposition comes as you're reading, and you learn more about their characters through their current experiences. So yeah, it's definitely one of my like it's my one of my most readable books.
So, who are your inspiration in writing Never Dying?
Ooh, in writing Neverdying, so I'm a big Star Wars fan. So I love Star Wars, I love science fiction, and I also I'm interested in like politics and the way that impacts writing and the ideas of like social change.
So, if you compare Star Wars and Star Trek, what's the big
Ooh,
difference?
ooh, okay. So between Star Wars and Star Trek, I have not seen Star Trek very much, so I'm like, okay, how do I answer this? So I've only seen a little. Um, they're both I feel like they both have very different ways of exploring the universes.
Yes, for sure. Different angle. And what are the most memorable quotes or passage from Neverdying?
Oh, good question. There are so many different ones I could say for this. Um, particularly, and I don't remember the actual quote word for word, but there's a turning point in the story where like Kane starts to realize exactly what is happening and he throws his gun just like across. He's like, I can't do this anymore.
So, Miss Shanti, to wrap up our discussion for today, what are or what is your expectation for Neverdying?
Ooh, so my expectations is that hopefully like it'll continue to sell. I'm expecting to do at least a little bit of bonus content cuz even though I finished the series and I was like, okay, I'm done. I'm not because I can't be done with the series. It's been too impactful. And I think there's so much more in this world to explore.
Okay, so can you give us a little bit spoiler? One
Ooh,
spoiler. If you may. If it's not, it's okay.
one spoiler. I'm trying to think of like, ooh, what's a good one? There will be a betrayal.
Oh, interesting. Miss Shanti Hershenson, at the age of 17, award-winning and best-selling author. Thank you so much for sharing your talents to the world. And can you please invite our listeners to support all your books?
Of course, if you want to find my books, you can find them on Amazon or anywhere you buy books online. And you can find me on my social medias. And yeah.
Yes, people, let's support Miss Shanti Hershenson because if you support her, more empowering novels to come. So, Miss Shanti, you will be my feature author of the month of June. Don't forget that. More to come, people. See you soon.